Hey guys, how's it going? Jay Sensational here. Welcome back to the channel. Today is going to be a quick update on patch notes because this is very exciting if you guys are not in the loop. Since rotation, we've had two separate formats, Eternal and Standard, and so far the focus has been on the Standard format. But something that Riot and the Play Runeterra team have been wanting to do is bring in Eternal Ladder back for a couple seasons every now and then. And after this patch, we are going to be having an Eternal Ladder, which is super exciting because Yasuo got rotated. I quite like a lot of the Eternal cards, such so on and so forth. And this is going to be really exciting because not only does this bring back an Eternal Ladder, but it also brings some new variety cards as well as balance changes that are oriented towards the Eternal cards. So there's a lot going on here in all compiling into this balance patch. It's not simply just the existence of Eternal Ladder, but a lot going behind it as well. And I'm super excited to dive into it. I know in the past couple weeks, this channel has been mainly Runeterra and Jeopardy focused. And if you're only here for that, don't worry, there's going to be a new episode coming out this Saturday. But with the Eternal Ladder coming back, I do want to also try to incorporate some more content into the channel. So if you guys were around for that in the past, then this might be it for you guys. But without further ado, let's jump into it. And also for those more competitive focused, this Runeterra Open coming up is also going to be in the Eternal format. So Eternal will now be the competitive focus for at least this next upcoming Open. So is there anything here? Blah blah blah. Yep. All right. So card buffs, loaded dice. So we have some very interesting cards that they're targeting. Hold for the rest of the rounds when you damage the enemy nexus, snap one. Next round when you damage the enemy nexus, snap one. Ooh, okay. So this is in line with things like, think about something like Barb Chain, right? The Samira card that's, draw two fleeting next round. This idea of being able to set up things next round is definitely a lot better. You don't have to invest the 4 mana and then have to figure out how to, damage the enemy nexus. Of course, things like Samira in the game, as well as the stylish shot. I mean, you're napping a lot of cards. It's a funny card. Not the card that I thought they'd hit, but it's quite interesting. Cosmic Inspiration, some buffs to some of the heavy hitters in Targon. We have Cosmic Inspiration, Cosmic Rays, and Supernova, removing their Behold a Celestial tag, or at least the condition, which is obviously a lot more powerful, right? Most of the times you get these cards off of Star Shaping, sometimes off of ASOL, and sometimes if you're only playing one Star Shaping, maybe you don't have another Celestial card. There are also some niche cases where you can potentially kill the only Celestial card on board, and then all of a sudden the effect kind of fizzles, right? Which I thought was really interesting. But they are definitely making these cards stronger, and it's gonna be interesting to see how we can, make these cards more, I guess, better and bring them back into the format, right? So that's really cool as well. This is definitely more of the change that like the focus, whereas this one seems like a little bit of an interesting one. Crimson Aristocrat. Oh my god, what? 2 mana. So Crimson Aristocrat in the before, 2 mana, 2/2, play, deal 1 to an ally, granted +2/+0, but now grants a +1/+0 and sheesh. That's cool. I mean, these, you can see how substantial some of these changes are, right? And going into the Eternal format, you're going to expect the power level of decks also to be a lot higher, given the fact that there's going to be new synergies, or at least existing synergies, both new cards, and so on and so forth, right? So having very meaningful buffs, because this is a pretty good card, right? And you look at something like Ayula, right? And Targon, that has the ability to grant Spell Shield or Overwhelm for 3 mana. And this is a 2 mana unit that can do it also in Noxus, right? Where generally speaking, there is a lot more synergy for dealing damage to your opponent's face. Now they mentioned that this is more of a Scargrounds archetype kind of thing, but very solid card, right? It reminds me of the Laurent Duelist card, which is now the 2 mana 2/2 grant an ally in hand challenger, right? And this falls in line both with in Noxus as well as a sort of a mirror for game design so far, which is, I think, pretty cool. Pix gets barrier. Cool. Yeah, I think Pix a lot of time was already play with Lulu. You use Lulu to support. It's a 4/4. Now his barrier considers as a Shen Lulu was a deck in the past. Extra synergy there. It can actually block now. Like you can play this on defensive turns, which is probably like the bigger upside. Obviously, you can attack with it now, and then your opponent can't really block it and get a free trade off of it. It's obviously very, very good, right? No way, the reverting twin. Holy moly, dude. Eternal's gonna be fucking bonkers, dude. Oh my god. Twin Discipline used to get +3/+3, or +3/+0 and +0/+3. Got nerfed, but now Twin. Oh my god. You can tell like the direction they're going, right? They want Eternal to be this juicy format. And it shows here when Twin Discipline was probably one of the strongest cards for this kind of effect, right? Or just combat trick in general, where nothing really beat it for its cost. And that's what made it super powerful, right? Especially this +3/+. God damn, that's so strong. Holy shit. Manifest. Oh, it's a play effect now. Okay. So, Eminent Benefactor, a card that you guys probably have never seen before. Used to be a last breath, create a random epic, but now you get a manifest, an epic card from your regions. So very similar to maybe like Loping Telescope, but slightly more expensive, but it has a much better stat line, right? Which is not irrelevant. Now this is only from your regions, which does limit the power level of it, so you can't hit just absurdly random things that can just swing the game in your favor, or at least where your opponent just doesn't expect it, right? It'd be interesting to see, but like this kind of card, super value oriented, right? um and recently we haven't really seen many decks that do want this kind of card. Now with things like the invoke changes and this, maybe we see a return of more like the PNZ invoke style of decks where maybe this card kind of fits in. But again, like look at the drastic changes in like power levels, right? Going from a last breath and a 3/3 understated to a manifest. Like it's just it's such like this difference in power levels, right? Captive Yeti, 6 mana, 5/5 overwhelm, reputation costs 3 less. Now a 5 mana, 5/5, but no overwhelm. Reputation I cost 4 less. They wanted to be a 1 mana 5/5, but it loses the overwhelm keyword, which is kind of awky. I think the overwhelm part was stronger. This one seems a little bit strange. It looks definitely to be just slightly more flavor oriented, but definitely a little bit stranger. Sanctum, Conservator, if you've slain 13 units, kill all and summon copy. But now if you kill a follower and then the same text. So you get an extra bonus, right? So in case you haven't slayed 13 units, this just kills a follower. So pseudo like vengeance, although you can't kill champions. So it's not like as bad as you feel less bad about putting in your deck if you can't meet the condition. Sort of a weird card. If you're doing this in like some slay package, ideally you're in like Shadow Isles, and then you have Raza as like a comparison, which kills 2 weakest. And then if you're already playing Shadow Isles, you just have more efficient cards like Vengeance or Crumble. A little off-putting, but again, just straight up buffs, right? Oh my god, Draven back to 3/3. Okay. Withering Wail, 4 mana. Okay. Aggro is one of the easiest decks to build in the new Eternal format, and I'll make sure that there are tools to combat it. Yeah. Like, Draven into the 3/3, they're bringing back discard aggro in like in form. This is going to be really, really powerful. Withering Wail, although I think always got like kind of shunned out of the meta. There's so few decks that actually got super impacted by Withering Wail. Obviously 4 mana is a really, really big boon to it, but Withering Wail was pretty much cut from most Shadow Isles decks near the end of its existence in standard. Concurrent timelines back to 1 mana. Poppy back to a 3/3. Yo, you got it. Plaza unnerfed. Wait. Out of the way, 4 mana. Unnerved Iceborne Legacy. Unnerved Escape Abomination. 4 mana Blessing of Targon. Unnerved Kinku Lifeblade. Okay, I mean, oh my god. Wow, that's insane. Um, I mean, these were some of the most like impactful changes that like really gutted some of the decks that these cards were in, right? Like concurrent timelines. Obviously still played for 2 mana, but slowed down. You can't play concurrent timelines in turn 1, right? Poppy going from a 3/3 to a 3/2/3 honestly wasn't super impactful. It was maybe a 4/3 to a 3/3, but still like the thresholds, right? Um, Grand Plaza heavily played when it was a +1/+1. All of a sudden, it gets removed and it's suddenly a lot more niche. Like these were meta defining cards in their forms before they were nerfed, right? 1 mana concurrent timelines, 3/3 Poppy, +1/+1 Grand Plaza. Absolutely meta defining cards. And it's cool to see that, you know, Eternal is going to have all of it, right? It's not just you get to play with every card, you get to play with these cards when they were at their peaks. And so obviously you're gonna have some pretty degenerate power level of decks, but I think, you know, that's the purpose of Eternal, right? That's always been, I think, what Eternal met like what Eternal wants to be, and I'm super excited for that. um Although I do think that these buffs are relatively limited, do think that there could be other cards in other regions, although they don't come to mind right now, that, you know, could see revert in certain buffs. Because there's definitely a decent focus, unit-based decks, right? You see Draven, most likely aggressive decks, board-based decks, board-based decks, board-based decks. Now, to be fair, Legend of Terra is a board-based game, but you don't really see much like on the removal side of things, PNZ, like there's no tri-beam revert to 4 mana, right? Things like that. Captain and Rick are going to a 6 mana 4 forward spell shield capture. That seems not bad, honestly, but the capture keyword itself is honestly a little bit underwhelming. On guard, 3/2 not bad. It's always been a good conchologist hit, but outside of that, it seems a little bit iffy. I think out of the way though is this seems quite good. 5 mana to 4 mana for this permanent effect. Now granted this card wasn't really played. It's very hard to really fit into a deck that's not a super meme. I've seen it played in like the Targon Demacia, Daybreak, Plaza. That was like a pretty cool thing, right? You could pair this in conjunction with the Daybreak package as well as the Challenger and +1/+1 buff from the Grand Plaza, and that was like a decent sort of interaction. Outside of that, I don't think it's really seen like actual play outside of very fringe cases, but it'll be interesting to see how this goes. Iceborne's Legacy, oh boy. Now granted that Pearl Cannon has seen a nerf, which was likely the main source of Iceborne Legacy. Now there are the spider cards, the spiderlings, and with Elise in Eternal, you know, this spiderling Iceborne Legacy thing is probably going to see a return. I mean, yeah, 4/3. It's been so long. I think people have forgotten how strong this card could be. So very interesting to see how this turns out. This is insane though. 4 mana for a +3/+3 grant. Okay, that's not that insane. We've had comparative cards like standalone, but this is just non-conditional, right? As well as in Targon as being one of the better buff regions. I mean, this one's pretty good, right? And also, you know, off of Tarek, off of Targonian Telestones, right? Very, very good options of generating this card on a whim if you need it. So very, very good. This is quite interesting. 3 health is a lot, especially a twin being a +3/+3. Like, imagine a 5/3 elusive over a lifesteal. Jesus. All right, Samira. Okay. So they're nerfing the level 2 Samira to have the same clause as the level 1 Samira, where it resets the 6 cards on your attack turn. Well, not super impactful. It does matter. Um, and you can't really have the same setup, so you can maybe like like rally like 3 times in a single turn, because you're like going in like 4 out of 6 onto your next turn, right? It's definitely super impactful. I like this change. Not super damaging to the card overall, but this flare card, oh, 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 now this is, I think, the change that was probably more expecting rather than a change of Samira herself, and that is the flare, where now you can only give challenger to Samira herself, which is huge, which is absolutely huge, right? A lot of the power level of Samira in a lot of other decks, Samira Leona, Samira Pantheon, Samira whatever, right, was the fact that you could give challenger to just any random oversetted unit, right? Like imagine you play like a 2 mana 3/6, you give it challenger on turn 3, and then bam, right? Like that's insane. This is what really affects Samira. Not directly to herself, right? But and a lot of times you were playing Flare on Samira just because she already has quick attack and you can buff her up, right? But this does matter a lot, a lot. And this honestly might change how Samira decks are being played, right? Like, do you still play something like Samira Pantheon, for example, Samira Varus, right? Like these decks that really fundamentally utilize Challenger on different units other than Samira. This could be really impactful. I like this change though overall. It does make the power level of Samira decks a lot weaker. It does limit what you can do with Samira without fundamentally changing how Samira works, right? So I really like this change. Tristana makes her level up slightly slower. Cool. Bandle Gunner's no spell. Thank God, dude. Bandle Gunner's having spell shield was so insane, especially because it has 5 attack and like 3 impact. So not only did you have to block it, but still take damage, you also couldn't really stop it from combat, right? Especially when you could play it for like 3 or 2 mana. This is a really good change, and definitely I think something that they shouldn't have started with. Tristana, matters a little less. Like it's so rare that you play her right when you have like right when she's leveled up, and her impact in the late game is still the same, right? So that's fine. A lot more impactful. Pandemonium no longer grants vulnerable. Wow, wow. Okay. I'm not sure if this was entirely necessary, but okay. All right. Card adjustments. Reputation cards now reduce their cost a certain amount rather than setting them to exact amount, which is very important. In a couple of ways. Let's say you discount a card to like 0, but reputation sets its cost back to X, then it still costs X, right? But it also means that if you prank a reputation card to like 7, it's only like -2 instead of going back to 2, right? Or at least I think that's how it works with prank. But if you discounted like a reputation cost to 0 and it says set its cost to 2, well, then it still costs 2. But change to mimic now costs 5, reputation that costs 3 less. When you play your next spell this round, copy it with the same targets. This is a little bit of a rehaul of Mimic, where in the past you could pick a spell in play, or in a hand and create a fleeting copy of it, but now it just copies the next spell, right? Which also means that you can't steal your opponent's spells, which is a slight bit of a downside per se. But this is probably a lot more enabling and different kind of things that you can do. So when you activate reputation costs 2, and then you get a double cast of the next spell, right? I mean, this works with anything. It doesn't necessarily have to target, but if it does target, copies on the same targets, right? This could be really interesting. The only downside is, it's not the spell you can generate. So if you want to play this card, you have to main deck it, right? Alternatively, you can get it off of things like Fan Club Present now that costs 5, right? But ultimately, if you want to play this card, you have to run it in your deck, which is probably the only downside to this card. Whatever combo you're enabling is going to be interesting. Ooh. Okay, Momentous Shift. So they nerfed Momentous Choice earlier. And they're semi-reverting it. Now the cost is back down to 1. Um, and it still gives +2/+0 or +0/+2, but there's only one instance of a spell. It only casts it once, so it's like, imagine it's like Twin Disciplines, right? Except it can cost one less, and it gives one less stats. It's essentially a mirror of Twin Discipline, right? It's a 1 mana for +2/+0 or +0/+2. Have a 2 mana +3/+0 +0/+3. But it's same, right? It's only one spell, and it has a slightly less condition, right? You're always getting the +2/+0 or the +0/+2, even if you don't equip anything. I think this card is on paper stronger, but has a lot less synergies with things like Nami, things like Varus, right? And yeah, it's stronger for Ionia overall. You can maybe just you know, it's like extra Twin Disciplines. Would you run this over Twin Disciplines? I think you still max twins before you add this card, but we'll see. But I like this change. I do like this change. And I think that's all the cards outside of the variety cards that we got, which I might review. Eternal, yup. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Oh, also, I believe that, yeah. So initially with the standard decks or like the free decks that you get as a new player, they used to the decks that they used to give were the same as before, which were sort of eternal locked. Now everyone gets 7 free standard decks, just for, you know, playing the game. So everyone should get these. They're available in the store. So if you are a new player or just relatively new to Legend of Terra, I know we've had a lot of discussion about, you know, should I play standard eternal, or my star decks are all eternal cards. Well, now you're gonna have some standard decks to play with as well. We are gonna be having Eternal Ladder this season, so I'd still suggest, you know, taking advantage of the fact that Eternal Ladder does exist. But you know, if you're just a new player, you're getting new cards, which is cool. Anything of relevance? That's a spoon of us. Blah 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 blah. Outer kegs would incorrectly. So this is interesting. Okay, there's some would draw a card in. Okay, there two semi-relative bug fixes. Beforehand, if you think a card like Brew Sentinel, a 3 mana 33 fearsome, if you slay a unit with the spell, grant me +2/+1, right? Now, in the past, if you cast a damage dealing spell and it triggers Powder Keg, right? Even if the spell doesn't kill anything, but the Powder Keg explodes, that would activate the Sentinel card. But now it doesn't. So interesting. And now Augmented Clockling no longer draws a card and reduces the cost when summoned. So if you hit this off of like Chrono Break, for example, you don't get this effect anymore. They said they were going to fix that. They did fix it. Cool. Also slightly relevant. If you played something after using a coin too quickly, there's a graphical bug where it doesn't show the mana spending, which can throw you off until like the next turn or whatever. That's cool. Outside of that, nothing super relevant. I'm gonna be honest. I wish there were more changes. I think there's some really cool ones out there, but honestly, not as many as I would have hoped for, especially for the first time around. Like, there's a lot of Demacia and Noxus changes, right? Grand Plaza, Poppy, Draven. I don't know. I think the nerfs hit the spot. These are good nerfs. Some cool changes overall. Like, the changes all fantastic, all super cool. I just wish there were more of them. I would love to have just super just insane sort of new format where it's not like we're returning to the same old decks that we had beforehand, but just at a stronger level, right? I'm always a favor of just absolutely throwing everything out the window. Um, but it'll be very interesting to see. Like, I feel like there's some really impactful changes overall, even if they're just small, right? But yeah, I mean, super excited for this stuff. Like the Eternal format is super exciting for me. I'll be back to playing some Yasuo and should be seeing some more content regarding Eternal overall. And I'm super excited for that. But these are going to be the changes for now. I'll link the patch notes if you want to read them by yourself on your own time down below in the description. But thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll see you guys later. Again, Jeopardy coming out this Saturday, and potentially more Eternal content coming to the channel in the coming weeks. But I appreciate y'all. Thank you guys so much, and have a lovely rest of your day. Peace out, guys.